North Korea fires missile over Japan. As Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump continue their potentially nuclear game of chicken, North Korea fired off a ballistic missile over northern Japan today. Thankfully, no country was blown off the face of the planet. South Korea says the launch was the second time the DPRK has fired a missile over the land of the rising sun in less than a month. The U.S. Pacific Command assessed it was an intermediate-range ballistic missile, though this conflicted with reports from Japan, which is still analyzing the situation. The missile was reportedly fired from the district of Sunan, in the North Korean capital of Pyongyang, and flew about 3,700 kilometers, reaching an altitude of 770 kilometers. Although the missile merely dropped into the Pacific Ocean, the launch still shouldn't be taken lightly, as it did come only hours after Kim took the UN Security Council's approval of additional sanctions pretty badly, with the North threatening to sink Japan and reduce the US mainland into ash and darkness. Today's launch was enough to prompt South Korea to carry out a live-fire drill that included a missile launch scenario, which the South claims would be able to strike the Sunan airport launch site. Meanwhile, Japan is also understandably shaken up, with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe telling the press that the launch was totally unacceptable and went against the international community's strong, united will for a peaceful solution. On the other hand, after being briefed about the situation, U.S. President Donald Trump apparently had nothing to say when asked by a pool reporter about the launch. North Korea's military might. With tensions ramping up on the Korean peninsula, perhaps it's time to assess just exactly what kind of heat Kim Jong-un is packing. According to The Telegraph, North Korea is believed to have more than 1,000 missiles of varying ranges. North Korea's short and long-range missiles can strike South Korea and Japan. Washington says Pyongyang is also developing a missile that will be capable of reaching the continental United States. North Korea is estimated to have enough plutonium to build as many as 6 nuclear bombs. Experts say it will take North Korea up to 10 years to fit a nuclear warhead to a missile capable of reaching the U.S. North Korea is believed to be able to make most kinds of chemical weapons. South Korea says the DPRK also has biological weapons, but it is unclear if they are ready for the battlefield. Military service is mandatory in North Korea for men and women, and the army has more than 1 million troops. The army relies on outdated Soviet tanks. The Navy has more than 70 submarines and 3 frigates. Most North Korean Air Force planes are outdated Chinese fighter jets, although it does have a small number of more modern Russian-built jets. The cyber warfare threat from North Korea is centered around an organization called Bureau 121, which boasts up to 6,000 hackers. Most of its attacks are targeted at South Korea. So that's the kind of hardware Kim Jong-un has at his fingertips. Let's just hope he brings an end to all this military madness before people get hurt. North Korea now has nuke that fits its missiles. U.S. President Donald Trump is warning North Korea of fire and fury after a Washington Post report revealed Pyongyang has produced miniaturized warheads. A U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency report says North Korea has successfully created a miniaturized warhead for its intercontinental ballistic missiles. The country now has missiles that reportedly range between 180 to 7,200 miles. The agency report also estimates that North Korea has up to 60 nuclear warheads in its arsenal. Russia and the United States still have the largest number of nuclear warheads in the world, estimated at 7,000 and 6,800 respectively. North Korea conducted 2 Icbm tests last month, showing off the potential to hit most of the continental U.S. In response, the United Nations imposed the toughest sanctions yet on North Korea, a move that was praised by President Trump. However, North Korea said the sanctions would not stop it from developing nuclear weapons and has threatened to make the U.S. pay the price. North Korea developing solid fuel missiles? Maybe. If you believe North Korean news, it looks like Kim Jong-un has the country developing new solid fuel missiles. Photos released by North Korean state media appear to show new solid fuel missile designs. One of the missiles was labeled Puguksong-3, which could be the latest in its Polaris series. The Puguksong-3 could have a longer range, as well as canister launching capabilities, which would make them easier to transport and harder to locate. A canister-based system would mean that North Korea could also fire the missiles via submarine. Solid fuel engines would allow for reduced launch times compared to liquid fuel missiles. Experts say it's more difficult to make out what type of design the other missile pictured was. Some speculated it was either a Hwasong-13 or Hwasong-11. North Korea's up to something in the Yellow Sea. U.S. officials say North Korea has been constructing several artificial islands for at least 5 years. Satellite images revealed that North Korea has been building 5 artificial islands for unknown purposes in the Yellow Sea near Sohae, a known testing site for intercontinental ballistic missile technology. 3 of the islands seem to have paved rectangular slots, which could be used to accommodate a North Korean ballistic missile and a launcher. Other islands could be used to host underground missile silos. Experts say the islands would most likely be able to deploy shorter-range missiles, such as Scuds, if they are intended to be used for missile launchers. However, there isn't enough definitive information to determine the actual purpose of the islands. Experts say it's possible they may even be used for agriculture. So where exactly is Guam? North Korea says it will soon be ready to launch missiles that will land near Guam as tensions ramp up between Pyongyang and Washington. Guam is located in the western Pacific Ocean, around 2,100 miles from North Korea. It is within the range of North Korea's medium and long-range missiles. The 210-square-mile island is a U.S. territory. It has 3 U.S. military bases, including an Air Force base that hosts B-52 bombers and fighter jets. Some 6,000 U.S. troops are stationed on Guam, which has a total population of around 162,000 people. Guam is protected by the U.S. Army's THAAD missile defense system, which is designed to shoot down ballistic missiles. According to state media, North Korea's military is waiting for approval from Kim Jong-un to fire 4 rockets that will land in the sea about 17 miles from Guam. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has warned Kim's regime that any threat to the U.S. would be met with fire and fury. How would the U.S. military fight North Korea? As tensions continue to mount on the Korean peninsula with no side backing down, the U.S. has threatened a massive military response to any potential North Korean nuclear attack. But what would that look like? The U.S. would likely deploy large groups of its Navy and Air Force to Japan, Okinawa, and Guam to bolster military presence there. A Stratfor analyst told Business Insider that they'd also possibly maneuver submarines and ships closer to the north and target nuclear facilities through airstrikes. Helicopter-deployed buoys would listen for North Korean submarines, which could then be destroyed by more advanced American underwater craft. Experts reckon the U.S. would not invade, but rather defend South Korea as the North Korean army charges the border. This scenario would also see U.S. Special Forces parachuting into strategic locations around Pyongyang for surgical strikes. If, in the extremely unlikely scenario, North Korea strikes Guam or another U.S. territory or ally with a nuclear strike, the U.S. has the option to respond via land, sea, or air. Most agree that the resulting American retaliation would lay waste to Pyongyang and kill thousands, if not millions. Or, Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump could just simply step into the octagon and see what happens.